simple fact is that you do not have a money problem. What you have is a currency problem. And there's a huge difference between currency and money. And I'm going to talk about 5 different types of currency. If you are chasing money over your relationships, over your spirituality, over your time, then you are sadly mistaken and you're chasing the wrong things and you will forever be left empty. There's a huge scriptural and spiritual component to this. There are 5 forms of currency that I'm going to lay out for you that will be radically life-changing for you in the way you think about your business, the way you think about your life, as they have been for me. This is probably one of the craziest things that has ever happened to me inside of my practice. We had a record year. And I was like on top of the world, literally most money. If somebody would have told me 10 years ago, 15 years ago that we would have collected this amount of money inside of my practice, I promise you, I would have said you were absolutely crazy. There's no chance that's possible. And I had an associate doctor. We had an amazing team. Everything was rolling or seemed to be. And I felt like I was doing everything right. I felt like I was pouring my heart into the Lord. I felt like I was doing a good job training my team. But what I realized is that I was simply chasing money. And when I realized that I was chasing money and God showed it to me, the next step in his process was to break me down, which sounds unfortunate. And he allows certain things so that we can grow. I either had to stop my pursuit of just chasing more money and chasing a 7-figure practice and chasing a certain number of people that we saw inside of the office and all the metrics that we would say, this makes you a good chiropractor or this makes you not a good chiropractor. And I realized that there was something so much more. But in that struggle, I literally had to fire an employee because I couldn't afford to pay them anymore. Mind you, this is coming off of a record year. And I decided to look at the struggles and the setbacks and the challenges as my biggest gift and my biggest opportunity to grow. What I want to walk you guys through is there are 5 forms of currency, and I'm going to walk through most important to least important. And so if we think of a funnel, the top of the funnel, arguably most important thing, is your spiritual form of currency. This is how you get your thirst quenched. So what I mean by that is in my life, when I was just chasing a financial number, this is the trap that most entrepreneurs and most people fall into in general, is that they tell themselves, when I hit X amount in my bank account, then I will be fulfilled. But as soon as you hit it, you realize that there's another level to be unlocked. And so what we do is we just move the goalposts. This is what people who are strivers and achievers do, which is probably why you're listening to this episode in the first place, because it gets exhausting. I told myself when we had a house with an ocean view and we had 2 cars and we kind of had our dream lives and our dream practice, that I would be set. Now I want to move closer to the ocean. And so if I let my home or the place that we live define me, then I continually have this thirst that can never be quenched for the next thing, because strivers move the goalposts. That's what we're trained to do. That's what we think brings us self-worth. But spirituality is the only thing that can quench our thirst. Like, it's literally the only thing that when we realize that we are loved, that we have a Father in heaven who loves us and who looks at us as perfectly, and he's a great dad to us, that's the only possible way that we can have our thirst quenched. And here's what I think is so special about the spiritual form of currency is that when you have that thirst quenched, the other things don't seem to matter as much. And when they don't seem to matter as much is actually when we get more of them. And so this gets into a conversation, I won't go too deep down the rabbit hole, but of desire. And so when we're desiring things, it implies a lack. And when we have our thirst quenched and spiritually we feel like we're sound, then we start to realize that God is leading us somewhere, and this is when we get to express our true passion and purpose inside of life. So form of currency, number 1, most important form of currency is not money, it is spirituality. Number 2, form of currency is our physical health. So most people do this inside of business is most people look at, well, I'm going to grind harder in the business. I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to put my physical health at the expense of growing my business. And while that sounds like a noble cause, more important than the money that you have in your bank account is the energy that you have. Because if you have money in the bank, but you have no energy to be able to use it efficiently, then it is a complete waste of time. If you have money in the bank, but you have no energy to spend time with God every morning, then you're completely wasting your time and you will forever be unfulfilled in life. When I first started practicing, I was hustling. Like, I wanted new patients. I was going out. I was doing everything I could. I was spending all my time. I was stressing myself out. I was on the computer 24/7, trying to build out websites and do funnels and learn the new sales strategy and reading all these books and taking all these notes. Like, I'm doing all this work to try and figure it out. Because I was using so much of my energy, I started saying, you know what, like, we don't have time to cook tonight. Let's just go eat Habit Burger. Like, let's just go eat fast food. And here's what I noticed is that I started to gain weight. My skin started to break out. I started to feel worse. I actually had less energy. And guess what I couldn't do? I couldn't work as efficiently. And so if we have a spirituality that is highly connected to God and we know what our passion and purpose is, we know what our true identity and what our true calling is, then if we address and we make sure that we take care of our physical health as a form of currency, as a form of money, as a form of something that will allow us to produce and create more, you realize that your energy is the thing that is oftentimes keeping people blocked, because people will sacrifice their energy and say, well, I can sleep when I'm dead. To me, it makes no sense. This is why I go to bed early and I wake up early, is because I want to have the energy to be able to be productive, to be able to be present, to be able to be all the things that I need to be for all the people inside of my life, because the physical energy matters, which leads me to currency number 3, which is your relationships. Now, relationships are important because if I have a spiritual connection with God, I'm going to probably value people more. And if I have the energy to pour into people more, then what happens is, like, you get to this place where when you have relationships, you realize that everything stops being transactional. And this was the case for me inside of my life. And this is one of the biggest things that I struggle with, is I used to look at clients. I got to get new clients because I got to pay the bills. If I'm looking at the people who are coming to my office as a number, as a financial number, as a bank account, as a bank statement, as a payment on a loan or a payment on the office space rent or whatever the case is, like, when those relationships become transactional, you literally are going to lead people in a different way. And I for sure know, and you know too, that people are going to start to pick up on it. If you've ever met somebody and you start having a conversation with them and you feel like, oh my gosh, this person literally is just trying to sell me their product, like, I can assure you that is because they are transactional in their relationships, which is a form of currency. And it's a poor form of currency if you're just trying to sell everybody on the thing that you have. And so what I had to learn and what I had to realize is, like, when I actually stopped being transactional with people, people trusted me more, which allowed me to provide better care for them. And when I was able to provide better care for them, I could start leading them better. And here's the coolest part of it. I used to think of my team in a very transactional way. I'm paying them money to come in to do a job, and it's money out of my bank account. But what I realized is, like, that's a transactional way of looking at those relationships. And now what do we look at it as? I look at it as I get to pay someone to help them live a better quality of life. And in turn, they get to come to the office and help provide an experience where people can massively have their lives transformed. It's not about my bank account. It actually would make more sense if I hired less people. But the reality is like, I don't care about that, because what we are about in the office now is making an impact in people's lives. So your relationships are a form of currency. The other thing to remember about relationships too is that a lot of times, like, the people you know will literally influence your net worth and your bank account. So if you have good relationships with people who are high producers, with people who are spiritually connected to God, with people who have their physical health, they're probably going to uplift you, which is ultimately going to uplift your business. It's going to uplift the way you interact. It's going to hold you to a higher standard in life. And so relationships are key. And I would argue, again, that it's your number 3 biggest form of currency that you could possibly have inside of your life, because you're usually only one relationship away from your next big breakthrough. Currency number 4 is your time. So a lot of people think about time and they think of it as more important. But if I ask you the question, if you have all the time in the world, but you don't have any energy to use that time, which would you choose? Or more importantly, if you had all the time in the world, but you felt completely hopeless, completely purposeless, with no identity, which would you choose? Would you rather have identity, or would you rather have all the time in the world? So this gets back to that hierarchy, right? Of most important is our spiritual form of currency, being connected to God, realizing that He's going to unlock our passion and purpose inside of our life, so we stop moving the goalposts and we stop chasing things that don't actually matter inside of our lives. Number 2 is our physical health, and specifically our energy and how our brain is functioning. Number 3 are our relationships. And then number 4 is time. And then that's going to lead to the one that we all want to always talk about, which is money, which is the last and the 5th form of currency. And this is the one that most people think of in the beginning when we think about currency in the first place. So those are the forms of currency. Those first 4, I think in my argument would be, those are the ones that actually translate to money in the first place. Being spiritually sound, knowing who you are in God, knowing that your bank account doesn't define you, knowing that your car, your house, or your business, or the numbers or the metrics that you use inside of your life don't define you. There's something greater. You're already loved. Number 2 is your physical health and your energy that you have. Number 3, your relationships and the people that you're connected with. Number 4 is time, and then that leads to the overflow, which is the finances in the first place. Everybody thinks if I had more new patients, I would have more money. If I had more time, I would have more money. And if I had both of those things, everything would be better. But the reality is like money is not the effect. Money is actually the cause. Money is actually the cause. If you have money, it's going to magnify the issues that are already there in the first place. And this is one of the biggest places where I see people get stuck, where I see people get lost, where I see people get confused. Think about it. You can't buy a relationship with God. The only way you can buy a relationship with God is if you have the energy to pour into your spirituality and you make the time to pour into your spirituality, which is ultimately going to affect your relationships in the first place. So what's cool about this funnel and this idea of the 5 forms of currency is that they all feed each other, but it starts with the spiritual component. Because if I just chase my physical health, a big part of being healthy, we know that the Bible says do not fear, because do not fear or not fearing it keeps our body out of a stress response. And if we're out of a stress response, our body's going to be healthier in the first place. So there's all these things that tie into this concept and this idea that you can't buy or outsource your health for the most part. Like you have to literally have time to go to the gym. You have to have the time and the energy to eat healthy. You can't buy back your time. In some ways you can, but there's only a finite amount of time for every single person who lives on this planet. And then ultimately, this is why I say again that money is not the issue. Money is the cause. And when you get to this idea of understanding and unlocking the 5 levels of currency, it will radically transform your life in all aspects. So just remember, there's 4 areas to go all in. Number 1 is your spirituality. Number 2, it's your physical health. Number 3, it is your relationships. And number 4 is your time. And when you focus on those, guaranteed more money will come your way because you're living in congruency with how God created this whole thing in the first place. And you just become more spiritually connected, which is going to overflow, allow you to serve more people. You don't need another sales tactic. You don't need more new patients. You just need to take the time to connect with your spirituality. And my friends, if you got some value out of this episode, I would ask you to do a couple of things. It's like 1, subscribe to this video, subscribe to the channel, like it. If you're interested in connecting with a community of like-minded entrepreneurs and business owners just like yourself, I would invite you to come and check out the Kingdom Council, which is a group of entrepreneurs that I created personally. I handpicked them. We go hard on all of these concepts in detail where we transform identity and we look at the owner's mentality. We start to look at how your systems and your processes and fulfillment inside of your practice can be kingdom-based principles and practices. We look at wealth and cash management. We look at marketing. We look at all the things inside of your business, but we do it from a holistic standpoint instead of just chasing that last form of currency, which is money. So if you're interested in connecting with a group who's just like you, looking for more, who wants to do it the right way, founded in identity, founded in God, just DM me on Instagram at Dr. Daniel Kimbley. I would love to walk you through our process and what we do and show you around in our community. I love you guys so much. We'll come at you again next week. Peace.